You're watching Forsaken Joe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the story. Let's begin.
It was just another morning at the shop. Tina and I were laughing about something, probably a dumb joke I'd made about one of the guys who couldn't seem to get the grease out of his overalls, when the door opened. The guy who walked in looked like he'd seen a ghost. He was in his mid-30s, shaking just enough for me to notice. When he handed me the envelope, his hand barely brushed mine, like he was scared I'd bite. I cracked it open without much thought, just expecting a bill or maybe some junk mail. But when I read the first few words, my stomach dropped. The petitioner's name was Danielle, my wife, and it didn't take more than a second to realize what this was about. Emotional abuse. The cause? My asking her about her ex. What the hell? It hit me like a freight train. I couldn't believe it. The shop felt like it froze in time. The guys working on cars, the clients sitting in the lobby, none of them even tried to hide it. I could feel their eyes on me. I stood there for what felt like forever, the paper crinkling in my hand like it might combust. I'm not one to get rattled easily, but I was stunned. She'd filed for a restraining order against me. And this whole emotional abuse thing? The fact that it was about me questioning her time with her ex hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't say anything. Just folded the paper up, shoved it in my back pocket, and walked to my office, Tina's voice trailing behind me like an echo. She didn't know what to say, but I didn't want her to. I needed a second. Alone. Once I was in my office, I shut the door, leaned against it, and let out a slow breath. Betrayal settled in deep, but I didn't feel the rage I thought I would. I felt nothing. Or maybe just the weight of a sinking realization that I was done fighting. I wasn't going to contest this. No point in it. But I was going to make sure she was out of my financial life. Completely. That was the only thing that felt clear. I'd let her go, but she wasn't going to take me down with her. Not financially. Not emotionally. Not anymore. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, cracked it open, and sat down at the kitchen table. The cold bottle felt good in my hand. I didn't want to waste time thinking about what had just happened. I needed to act. And I wasn't about to do it with my head spinning or my blood boiling. First, I logged into the bank account. Danielle's name was still on there, and I'd let that slide for way too long. She had access to everything. I hit the transfer button and moved the money. Every cent. All gone. I was being thorough. I even closed out our joint credit cards. Not that she had much room left to charge anything, but it felt right. It felt necessary. I wasn't going to let her ruin me financially while she was playing this game. Next up, the loan. Danielle had always needed my credit to get things done, especially that $35,000 equipment loan for her dog grooming business. I'd co-signed it for her, and now? Now, it was time to remove myself completely. I dialed the bank. Same guy I'd been dealing with for years, Todd. The guy who'd helped me buy my first truck when I was just a mechanic with big dreams. He answered after a couple of rings, his voice familiar and warm. Hey Todd, I need you to pull the guarantee I've got on Danielle's equipment loan. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could practically hear him sorting through his notes. You sure about this? He asked, a little hesitant. You know, if you pull that, it could really screw her business. I'm sure. I'm not involved with her anymore. Just pull it. All right, Kevin. I'll get it done. But, just so you know, I'm warning you. She's probably going to be in default in about a month. That loan's going to be hard to cover without you. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I'd made my decision. She wasn't my responsibility anymore. Not financially. Not emotionally. I let the words sink in, then hung up without another word. The beer tasted bitterer now, but I drank anyway. I was doing what needed to be done, no matter how much it stung. This wasn't some petty power play. This wasn't revenge. It was just a clean break. I went through the rest of the steps, canceling the automatic payments to her shop, getting rid of anything that tied me to her financially. It was all business now. No emotion. I read through the restraining order again, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Every word. Every restriction. I wasn't about to give her any reason to use my compliance against me. Once everything was done, I picked up my phone. I opened the payment apps I used to share with her. Every account, every connection, gone. Just like that. Clean. No mess. I sat back in my chair and exhaled. Now we're even, I muttered to myself. She wanted space. I'm giving it. It was done. The air in the room felt different now, lighter somehow. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. Just calm. I was exactly where I needed to be. 2 days later, on a Saturday morning that was quieter than usual, I was sitting at the kitchen table, finishing my coffee when the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. The area code was out of state, but something about it felt off. I picked it up on the fourth ring. "Hello, Mr. Kevin Westbrook?" A voice asked, formal and smooth. Too smooth. "Yeah. Who's this?" "This is Mr. Halpern. I'm Danielle's attorney." I didn't react. I just let him talk, the words heavy in the air like they had weight. "I'm calling regarding your recent actions. Specifically, the sudden changes to your joint financial arrangements. We believe there's been a misunderstanding." His tone was too careful, like he was testing the waters, figuring out how much he could push. I kept my voice steady. "I'm just complying with the court order." He stammered a little, then cleared his throat. Of course. But, Mr. Westbrook, this abrupt financial separation, it's created quite a bit of difficulty for Danielle. She's very distressed. And her business, as you know, depends on your continued support." I didn't say anything for a moment. Let the words hang in the air. Part of me wanted to laugh at how easy he thought it'd be to pull me back in. The other part just felt numb. "You're telling me you want me to reverse my decisions?" I asked, my voice flat. "Well, not exactly," Halpern said, trying to soften the words. "We were hoping you might consider a more neutral approach, maybe a face-to-face meeting, where we could all discuss this calmly. Perhaps there's been some miscommunication?" I didn't even hesitate. "No, there hasn't been. And I'm not meeting with you or her. Not after what's been filed. I'm following the court's orders to the letter." I could hear him shuffle papers in the background. "But Mr. Westbrook, this is about her livelihood. Danielle can't keep the shop running without your help. If you reconsider." I cut him off, my patience wearing thin. "If you're trying to make this about me helping her, it's not going to work. She's the one who claimed I was abusive. If I keep helping her, I could be seen as continuing the abuse. You know that, right?" There was a long pause. He wasn't expecting me to hit him with that. "She's in financial trouble, Mr. Westbrook," he said again, this time quieter. "Desperate. And without your help, that shop is going to close." I didn't feel any sympathy. That's not my problem anymore. She made her choice. You can't use her business as leverage to get me back into her life. You know that. Halpern took a breath. "Look, I understand you're angry." "I'm not angry," I interrupted. "I'm complying with the court order. End of story." The lawyer fell silent. He knew he wasn't going to get anywhere with me. I could practically hear his mind racing, trying to figure out what to say next. Then, in a last-ditch effort, he sighed deeply. "Mr. Westbrook, please, think about this. The situation could be fixed if only you'd reconsider. It's about saving Danielle's future." "I'm not reconsidering," I said, my tone final. "And if that's all, I think we're done here." I hung up the phone without waiting for him to respond. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of a drawn-out conversation. I stared at the phone screen for a moment, feeling a strange emptiness. I'd done what I had to do, but something about the call still stuck with me, like an itch I couldn't scratch. I grabbed my laptop and forwarded the call log to my own lawyer. I wasn't taking any chances with this. Then I opened a new document, titled it "Protecting Myself," and began typing everything that had happened. I wasn't going to rely on just a few phone calls or a vague memory if things got ugly. I wrote down Halpern's offer of a neutral meeting, his insistence that I help Danielle financially, and my response. Every detail, because I knew this wasn't over. The more I wrote, the clearer it became. This wasn't about me being a good guy or a bad guy. It was about making sure I didn't get pulled back into something I didn't want any part of. By the time I was done, I had a solid record, everything backed up and ready. I saved the file, closed the laptop, and leaned back in my chair. This wasn't a war. It was just me protecting what was left of my peace. Monday morning, the sun was barely up when my phone buzzed with a message from my buddy, Mike. I didn't know what to expect, but I'd been in enough situations with Danielle and her friends to know when trouble was coming my way. "Yo, Kevin, check out Ashley's Facebook. She's dragging you hard. Your name's all over it." I didn't have to ask who Ashley was. Danielle's best friend, the one who'd always stuck by her side no matter what kind of mess Danielle had made. I knew exactly what this was about. I grabbed my phone, opened Facebook, and the first thing I saw was a post from Ashley. The picture was one of those grainy, overexposed ones people always used for dramatic effect. It was just her, but the caption told the whole story. "Some men will go to any lengths to keep control. My best friend is a survivor. She deserves so much more than this." Beneath it, She went on about how controlling husbands would cut off funds to punish a woman for leaving. The post had hundreds of comments already, and the anger was palpable. I felt a heat rising in me, but I kept scrolling. A few comments down, someone had posted a screenshot of Danielle's restraining order. Someone else was chiming in about how they didn't know what to believe anymore. But that didn't stop the tide of sympathy pouring in for Danielle. I scrolled further, and the comments turned nastier. One of Danielle's friends said, "She filed that order to get control, but now he's cutting her off completely. This isn't justice, it's financial abuse." That one stung a little. I wasn't the one trying to control anyone, but in their eyes, that's what it looked like. It was all twisting into something I couldn't even recognize. Then, just as I was about to close the app, I saw something that made me stop cold. A text message screenshot posted by one of Danielle's friends. It was from Danielle herself. She had sent it, no doubt, thinking it was just a private conversation. The order was supposed to make him stop questioning me, not kill my business. I read it over a few times, my stomach dropping lower with every word. She'd said it, out loud, even in a message that wasn't meant for anyone else to see. This wasn't about safety. It was never about protecting herself. It was about silencing me, controlling me. And now, she was using everything she could, me, my money, the business, against me. I quickly grabbed a screenshot of the post and the text message. Then another and another. I had to get this all down. I wasn't about to let them spin this into some narrative that made me look like the bad guy when they were the ones playing dirty. I forwarded the whole damn thing to my lawyer, Greg. I didn't wait for him to ask questions. He knew the deal by now. I just typed, "Take a look at this. I'm done being her punching bag." A couple of minutes later, the phone buzzed again. Greg's response came in fast. "This is gold." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I wasn't playing her game anymore. This wasn't a situation where I had to bend or give in. She had wanted to control me with that restraining order, make me the villain. But she hadn't expected me to take it seriously. She'd thought I would fight her, that I'd make a scene and get dragged back into it. Instead, I'd let the law do its job and walked away. Danielle had used the order to try and manipulate me, but what she didn't realize was that the moment I followed the rules, the moment I complied, she lost her leverage. She had built her cage, and now she was in it. I wasn't going to play the game anymore. I was just holding the door shut. A few days after I forwarded everything to Greg, the updates started rolling in. First, my bank called. It wasn't anything urgent, just a quick heads up. Danielle hadn't made any payments on her equipment loan, and the shop's rent was overdue. I already knew that wasn't my problem anymore, but hearing it still stung. She had always been bad with money, but now it was official. The dominoes were starting to fall. Then came the credit alerts. The charges were so big and so frequent. I could almost hear the swipe of her credit card cutting through what was left of my patience. High-end pet supplies, designer clothes, spa visits, things she couldn't afford, things she'd never been able to afford without me. All of it charged to my once shared cards. I couldn't even begin to guess how much she had racked up, but I didn't have to. It wasn't my problem anymore. But the real kicker came when I saw the post on social media. Danielle had posted a picture of herself wrapped in a fluffy white robe, lounging in a spa. She was holding a mimosa like it was a victory flag. The caption was full of hashtags like #healing and #bossbabe, with a message about how she was starting fresh and taking control of her life. It looked like she was living her best life, on the dime of someone she claimed was abusing her. I wasn't the only one who saw the irony. Her followers were starting to ask questions. "Wait, if you're being financially abused, why are you posting pictures from the spa?" one person asked. Another commented, "Aren't you supposed to be broke, though?" I couldn't help but scroll through the comments, the small flickers of doubt from her friends getting louder with every post. One person even had the audacity to say, "This is the kind of freedom we all need. Financial abuse doesn't look so bad." It made my blood boil, but I stayed calm. I screenshot everything. I kept building my case, collecting every scrap of evidence. I forwarded everything to Greg. He'd been silent for a while, but now he responded quickly. "Keep it coming. This is going to be useful." It felt good to know I wasn't alone in this. Every time she posted something, I was ready to gather it, analyze it, make sure nothing got twisted. The more she posted about her new life, the more the cracks in her story showed. She'd made it clear she wanted control, but what I had now was the truth. And that was all I needed. Later that evening, Just as I was getting ready to shut it all down for the night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Danielle's mom. "You're going too far. We need to talk." I stared at the screen for a second, weighing my options. I could call her. I could respond. But honestly, I wasn't interested. I didn't need to get dragged into another conversation where they tried to guilt trip me into doing the right thing. What they didn't understand, what they couldn't get, was that I was doing the right thing. I was holding my ground, protecting myself. I deleted the text without responding. No need for words. No need for any more drama. I'd already made my choice. The door was closed, and they'd have to figure it out on their own. I was just sitting down with my second cup of coffee when the bank called. The tone in the woman's voice immediately told me something was wrong. "Mr. Westbrook, we need to inform you that someone attempted to submit forged paperwork attempting to reinstate your guarantee on Danielle's equipment loan." I sat up straight. "Who?" I asked, even though I already had a feeling I knew the answer. "The signature was flagged by our fraud detection system," she said, "and it's been confirmed that the person who submitted it was Patricia, Danielle's mother." Patricia. I couldn't believe it. After everything, she was still trying to get her hands on my finances. She hadn't backed off, not one bit. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the anger rise, but doing my best to keep it in check. "What's next?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. "We've documented everything, and we're prepared to take further action if necessary. We recommend that you file a police report." I didn't need convincing. I wasn't going to let this slide. "I'll take care of it. Send me everything you have on this." I hung up, feeling a knot twist in my stomach. The whole situation was spiraling, and now it was getting worse. I grabbed my jacket and headed out the door. As I walked across the street to the shop, I could see the clearance sale, closing soon signs in the window. The place looked like it was already shutting down, and part of me almost felt relieved. But it also made me sick. This was her mother's doing, trying to clean up Danielle's mess, trying to force me back into it. When I stepped closer, I spotted Patricia walking briskly into the back door of the shop with a stack of papers in her hands. My first instinct was to go over there and confront her, but I stayed put. No need to start a scene. Not yet. I wasn't going to give them any ammunition to twist this in their favor. I pulled my phone out and snapped a picture of her entering. Just another piece of evidence. As I stood there, watching her disappear behind the door, my phone buzzed. It was Greg. "This forgery could actually help us," he said, his voice sharp and calculating, like he was already thinking 3 steps ahead. "If we play this right, it could be the final nail in the coffin for that restraining order. It shows they're still trying to manipulate your finances, which weakens their whole case." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It wasn't the kind of victory I had been hoping for, but it was progress. It meant I wasn't just a victim anymore. They were making mistakes, and I was ready to capitalize on them. "I'm not backing down," I said, my voice hard. "I'll get the police report filed and send everything your way." "Good," Greg said. "This is solid. You're in control now. Keep me posted." I tucked my phone back in my pocket and took one last look at the shop. The sign still hung there, but it felt like everything was already slipping away. She thought she could control everything, but she didn't realize I was already ahead of her. I walked back to my truck, my mind racing with what I needed to do next. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It wasn't even about the restraining order. It was about her trying to manipulate me. Still, even after everything, and I was done letting her. When I got back home, I sat down at my desk and started writing everything down. I wasn't going to leave any detail out, not this time. I was going to make sure every move they made, every misstep, was on record. I opened my voice memo app and hit record. "She wanted out," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm just holding the door." I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. But I was playing the game on my terms now. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control. The phone call came at 10:17 a.m., just as I was finishing up some paperwork for the shop. The number on the screen was from the local police department, and my stomach dropped. I already knew what was coming. "Mr. Westbrook?" The officer's voice was steady, but I could hear the faint tension underneath. "I'm calling to inform you that Patricia has been arrested for fraud. We've found additional forged documents, including attempts to access your insurance policies." I was silent for a second, processing the words. Patricia, trying to get her hands on my insurance? It was like they couldn't stop digging their own grave. "We'll need your cooperation," the officer continued. and we're asking for any additional documents or evidence you may have on the situation. We've already got a solid case, but your information would help strengthen it." I didn't need any more convincing. "I'll send everything I have over," I said, my voice flat. It wasn't about revenge at this point. It was about closing the door for good. The officer thanked me, and I hung up. I didn't feel much of anything. The anger had been replaced by a sense of clarity. She had crossed a line, and now it was done. Patricia was going to face the consequences of her actions, and for once, I wasn't going to clean up the mess. I sent the police everything I had on the forgery and the texts between Patricia and Danielle. If it wasn't already clear that they'd been working together, it sure was now. The message thread between them was like a blueprint for their plan. Patricia asking Danielle if she thought the loan guarantee could be reinstated. Danielle saying, "Just make sure Kevin doesn't catch on." It was the kind of thing that couldn't be misinterpreted. They were both deep in this, and now they were both going to pay the price. Then came the real kicker. Danielle's lawyer, Mr. Halpern, dropped her case like a hot potato. A few days later, I got a letter from a new attorney, some guy I'd never heard of, but I knew enough to recognize the name. He was one of those bottom-tier lawyers you see on late-night commercials, the kind who always promise to get you the money you deserve. His letter was ridiculous. It demanded $4,000 a month in spousal support, the reinstatement of the loan, and coverage of Danielle's legal fees. I laughed when I saw it. The audacity of it all. I showed it to Greg, and he barely got through reading it before he was already drafting a response. "My client cannot support someone who claims his financial involvement is abuse," the letter read. It was blunt and cold, and it hit exactly where it needed to. I wasn't playing along with their games anymore. I wasn't backing down, not for anyone. A couple of days later, Greg followed up with another message. "We're done. Let's file for the divorce." It hit me all at once. It was finally over. They thought they could use me, that I'd cave under pressure. But I wasn't the same guy anymore. I'd held my ground, kept my cool, and now everything they tried to build around me was crumbling. And I felt strangely peaceful. Not relieved exactly. It was more like I'd built something solid from all the chaos. Danielle had spent all this time trying to control everything around her, trying to manipulate the situation for her own gain. But in the end, she'd only trapped herself. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the shop. The same "closing soon" signs were still up, and I thought about how everything was finally falling into place. She built her cage, tried to lock me in with her, and I just shut the door. There was no satisfaction in it. No joy, just peace. And for the first time in a long time, I was okay with that. It was 4 days before the loan defaulted when Danielle showed up at the garage. I didn't hear her at first. The shop was busy, cars coming in and out, the usual clatter of tools and guys talking shop. But then I heard it, her voice cutting through everything else, sharp and frantic, like a blade through the quiet. I looked up and saw her standing in the customer lobby, her face a mess of tears and anger. "Kevin," she screamed. "Fix this. You need to fix this right now." Her hands were waving wildly, and she didn't even care who was watching. A couple of the guys looked up, then quickly turned their attention back to whatever they were working on. I could feel the eyes on me, though. They were waiting for me to snap, waiting for me to lose it. But I didn't. I stayed calm, too calm. "Danielle," I said, standing from my desk. My voice was steady. "You're violating the restraining order." She didn't care. She didn't even acknowledge it. She just stormed toward me, the heels of her shoes clicking on the tile floor. "I don't care about the damn order. You ruined my life, Kevin. You're ruining everything. I need you to fix it now." Her voice cracked with a mix of desperation and rage. I didn't move, didn't flinch. I just reached for my phone and called security. They were here in under 5 minutes. By the time they showed up, Danielle was pacing in front of my desk, crying 1 second, screaming the next. "You can't just walk away from me like this," she yelled, her voice breaking. "You can't do this to me." I didn't say anything, just stood there, letting her rage, letting her make a fool of herself. I knew what was coming. The security guards were quick, efficient, no questions asked. They didn't have any reason to tolerate her tantrum. They took her outside, and within 20 minutes, the police arrived. I wasn't surprised when I saw the cuffs. It wasn't the first time I'd seen someone arrested for violating a restraining order, but this felt different. This was personal. She hadn't just come here to beg or plead. She had come here to try and tear me down, to make me feel guilty. But she wasn't getting the satisfaction. She'd crossed a line, and now it was over. As they drove off with her in the back of the cruiser, I stood in the lobby, watching through the glass doors. I wasn't sure what felt worse, the fact that I'd been right about her, or that this was all happening in front of everyone. Across the street, I saw something else unfolding. I didn't know what exactly, but I saw Patricia. She was outside the courthouse, holding a press conference. I could see her gesturing wildly, talking to the few reporters that had gathered around her. It looked like it was supposed to be a big deal, like she was making some kind of statement. And then I saw it. One of the reporters asked a question I didn't expect. "Can you explain the forged documents you submitted on behalf of your daughter?" The cameras shifted, and for a brief second, I saw the color drain from Patricia's face. She stammered something about misunderstandings, but it didn't matter. The reporters had already sniffed out the truth. They didn't let her off the hook. The story spread like wildfire. By the time I got home, the online world had already exploded. Social media turned on them. The press ate it up. The boutique collapse became the headline, and the restraining order drama turned into the punchline. People started calling it what it was: manipulation, fraud, desperation. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't even relieved. I just felt numb. It was over, and it had played out exactly how I'd expected, only worse. But as I sat at my kitchen table, alone, a part of me realized something. I'd been fighting this for so long, and for what? To get the truth out? To get her to admit her mistakes? I'd been trying to save something that was already gone. I ate my dinner in silence. There was no celebration, no joy, just quiet. I pushed my plate aside when I was done, staring out the window into the darkness. Sometimes, they really do take themselves out, and you don't even have to lift a finger. The call came just as I was finishing a late breakfast, a surprise number on the screen. I answered without much thought. "Mr. Westbrook?" The voice on the other end was rough, older, a little hesitant. "This is William, Danielle's father." I froze. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it sure wasn't this. "Look, I know you're probably not looking for a conversation with me," he continued, "but I've been following what's going on. And I need to tell you, I've been through the same thing. With Patricia, decades ago. The restraining orders, the forged documents, it's all part of their playbook." I sat down, the weight of his words sinking in. "Patricia? You?" I couldn't even finish the sentence. "Yeah," he said, his voice low. "She's got a way of twisting things, manipulating people. She's been doing it for years. And Danielle, well, she learned from the best. Don't let her pull you back in. Don't fall for it." I gripped the phone tighter, trying to make sense of everything he was saying. "You think Danielle's doing this on purpose? The whole game? It's a pattern. Trust me. I didn't see it at first, but now I know. And if you think she's done, think again. Don't let your guard down. She'll try to reconcile. She'll try to get you to forgive her, but it's all manipulation. Always has been." I didn't say anything for a long while. I was too busy letting the realization hit me hard in the chest. I'd been holding on to the idea that maybe, just maybe, there was something worth saving. But hearing it from him, hearing that it was all part of the same twisted playbook, I knew it was over for good. "Thanks for the heads up," I finally said, feeling the weight of the decision sink in deeper. "Take care of yourself, Kevin," he added. "Don't let them win." I hung up, the phone still in my hand as the silence settled around me. A warning, a reminder of what I'd already known. They weren't going to stop. A few days later, Danielle showed up at the garage again. This time it was worse. She was livid, shouting through the glass doors before she even made it inside. She tried to force her way in, ignoring the security guard's orders to leave. When I saw her, I knew instantly this wasn't just a scene. This was her final attempt to drag me back into the mess. I didn't move. I didn't say anything. I just watched as security took her outside again, this time with a more permanent kind of restraint. As soon as the cruiser left with her in the back, I exhaled, not relieved, but numb. That was the final straw. The boutique loan officially defaulted the next day, just like I knew it would. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't even mad. I sat at the kitchen table that night, black coffee in front of me, and opened the bank app. The $0 balance flashed on the screen, like it was a clean slate. I wasn't worried about what had been taken or lost anymore. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't fighting. I wasn't scrambling to save anything or fix anything. I thought about what William had said, about staying still while everything burned down. Freedom's not always about running. I muttered to myself, staring at the screen. Sometimes it's just staying still while everything else burns down.